What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. This is Season 2, Episode 4 of the Point After podcast. Today we are going to be covering UAB, a little hometown team, an hour and a half south of us. Going to be heading out to their couple games of theirs this year, starting with week number 1. It's actually in Montgomery, going up against another hometown team, Jacksonville State. Excited to get into this team's preview, and as always, joined by co-host Matthew. Matt, how's it going, man?
It's going great, brother. UAB, local team to us, mean a lot to us. Definitely, there a couple years ago had us in a real scare, but here we are talking about them in 2021, and it feels great. And they are doing things right down there. About to have a new stadium, beautiful stadium. Looking forward to all things UAB coming forward.
Yeah, probably one of the best head coaches around at the reins. Bill Clark, his sixth year. He's won 2 conference championships. He's got 4 West Division championships, I'm pretty sure, in his tenure there. And this is a UAB team who, like we said in yesterday's Conference USA preview, they're going to camp out in the top 25 for a while, and they're going to stay there. This is a team that's not going to go away. They have a couple tough games, but I think we're going to learn a lot about them in the first 2 weeks. We can go ahead and start with the game that we will be at in person. That is the Jacksonville State Gamecocks versus UAB in the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama, Wednesday, September 1st on ESPN. I'm looking forward to that. I think that's probably the first college game we've ever been to together. We went to the Falcons game 2 years ago, I think. But I think this is going to be the first college game that we've actually attended.
Yeah, and I feel like we would have went to a couple of college games, especially UAB and or Jacksonville, even North Alabama. Last year, had it not been for COVID stuff and everybody that we know and love getting married.
Yeah.
So,
Including
but hey,
ourselves,
September 1st, this will technically kick off the season. Crampton Bowl usually does.
Yep.
On ESPN, 2 teams. Don't ask us who we're going to be pulling for. We're going to be fans of both. He'll be wearing team colors for one team, and I'll be wearing team colors for the other. TPA gear, so be sure to check that out. We'll talk about it more at the end. But anyways, man, I'm like super stoked for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I think this is even though it's an FCS versus FBS matchup, I think this is really, really even. Even. We talked a lot about UAB yesterday. Their offensive line coming back is really good. Deontay McBride's probably going to have a breakout year. They're getting their quarterback back, Tyler Johnston. Receivers are coming back. Defense is stacked. UAB is a really, really good football team. But on the flip side of that, Jacksonville State's won 5 out of the last 6 OVC conference championships. They've kind of choked in the playoffs a few years, but again, 5 out of 6 conference championships. You're losing to teams that make deep playoff runs in the FCS. Jacksonville State's not going to be any pushover. They have a Clemson transfer, Zarek Cooper at quarterback. They have Zaire Webb, I think, or Zion. Is it Zion Webb or Zaire Webb?
Zaire.
At quarterback when Derek's hurt, or they run a 2 quarterback system with Coach Ogle. They do lose Trey Berry, their number 1 tight end. Lost a couple guys defensively. Towards the end of the year, they're transferring out, but I also know they have a couple of good transfers coming in. So, again, I think this is going to be a really, really good matchup. Got anybody that you're kind of favoring?
I'm gonna side with UAB on this sole thing and what I've been preaching on, and I hope I don't get let down. But it's offensive line. Returning 4 starters. That is huge. Name a football team that has not been good in the past that doesn't have a good offensive line.
Yeah.
Not one. You know what I'm saying? And, let me add this too. You think of the state of Alabama, you typically think of Alabama and Auburn, and majority, that's what is talked about. But true fans of football know that UAB and Jacksonville State and several other schools, but these 2 being the next 2 big name programs, there's a lot of pride in the state of Alabama surrounding these 2 teams.
Yeah, I think when we go to that game, I think it's going to be unreal. I think the atmosphere is crazy because normally like Jacksonville State's playing Chattanooga or somebody like that, like an outside conference game for them in Crampton Bowl, and it's not really as good of an atmosphere as I think we're going to get to see firsthand. I think this game is going to be electric. It's on ESPN. I think it's going to be low scoring, kind of defensive. Jacksonville State's got a pretty good defense, but offensively they like to keep the ball. They like to run it. They run a really, really good offense. Coach Ogle knows what he's doing there. He's got two quarterbacks that really fit his system well. I think we're looking at like a 27-23, 20-26-21 kind of game. Kind of low scoring. UAB is going to put up points. I think it's going to come down to turnovers. I think this is a game that, whoever takes care of the football, doesn't turn the ball over, comes out on top, and I'm really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing to add too, UAB I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, they have opened the season. Usually it's the second game of the year they play an FBS school, correct?
Normally.
I was about to say. So, they get a big game. What I'm saying is they get a big game at the beginning of the year, for the program. But this right here is a different kind of big game. You may not be playing Florida State or Clemson or whoever it may be. At the same time, Jacksonville State is a really good football program, and this would be a huge resume win if you ask me.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a game that is it's a lot deeper than just UAB versus Jacksonville State. This is a game that's gonna a lot of kind of like what we talked about. A lot of people in Alabama is gonna want to win because not only are these teams really, really good, and some consider them to be more notable than Auburn in ways, just in terms of championships, tradition, things like that, especially with the success that Alabama's had recently. But, UAB is like an hour from Jacksonville. Like, these teams are really close. Coach Clark was actually the head coach at Jacksonville State before Coach Gross took over with his staff that's still there now, Coach Ogle Sandlin, and all those guys. So this game has a deeper meaning than a lot of people understand. But yeah, I think I'm a side with you. I think I'm gonna go with UAB out on top.
This game's got to be a UAB. This has got to be their game simply because you're turning right around and traveling to Athens, Georgia, to play arguably the best team, one of the best teams in the country.
Yep.
That by no means is going to be an easy football game. So I think there's got to, you prepare every game the same. You should. But there are games on your schedule that you can realistically look at and say, we have a chance to win this game. You have a chance to win every game. But this one right here in Jacksonville State, this is one they got to check off. Got to start the season out big.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it. Georgia is the next opponent of UAB. They have a 10-game gap between Jacksonville and Georgia. Georgia opens the year at Clemson. I'm not going to talk about that game yet because I'm really, really looking forward to that game specifically. But Georgia found their groove to end the year, to say the least. You pick up a really, really good win over Cincinnati in the bowl game. JT Daniels could possibly win SEC Offensive Player of the Year. I think he's this year's Kyle Trask. That game, to me, is going to be UAB's kind of let's see how good they are kind of game. You know what I mean? I think Georgia comes out on top, but I think UAB is going to play them close. I think this is a game where Georgia may win by 2 or 3 scores, but the game's going to be a lot closer than the scoreboard shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
especially being early in the year, the second Saturday of the season. UAB is going to play them close. I think Georgia gets the win, but I think we learned a lot about UAB that day in Athens.
Yeah, absolutely. And, nothing will be better going into that game. 1-0. Turn right around and play North Texas and Tulane, two teams that, we talked about. Tulane offensively should have a really good impact this season from their offense. So that's going to be a good test for the defense. North Texas, on the other hand, they should be able to handle that game fairly easy. That'll be first conference game?
Yeah, that's their first conference game. Tulane is a AAC team, so that'll be a non-conference. But, you look at UAB, you knock out your 4 non-conference games the first 5 weeks of the season.
Yep.
And
then, but I was telling you in the conference video, that 5-game stretch for UAB at the start of the season is going to be crucial, and it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Because right after that, they're going to play who will be a top 25 team, Liberty.
Yep.
So right off the jump, man, they're getting hit with some tests. And I think a team like this has a lot to prove, and I think they're very well capable of proving it.
I think so too. I think UAB's, again, it's going to come down to their front seven. We know North Texas is going to be able to put up points passing the ball, but I think UAB's front seven is going to be able to get some pressure, force some turnovers, and kind of win that one handily. Tulane, I think they're just a tier below UAB right now. I don't see that game being very close either. Liberty, though, that's going to be a really, really good game to watch. That's the first home game for UAB this season. And honestly, Matt, with that being October 2nd, there may be a chance that they get in that new stadium for that game. I don't know exactly when that stadium is supposed to be done, but that's still almost 2.5, 3 months away. So a lot can happen between now and then. Talking about getting a game in that stadium or do it. It wouldn't be surprised if that game's in the stadium, and that would be a game I want to go to, especially Malik Willis.
Agree.
We saw how good Liberty was last year. They're going to be just as good this year.
Yeah, so I mean, you're bringing that into your hometown. The entire city should come out. That's a big game. You get a win like that, and you're successful the previous 4 games, maybe with the exception of Georgia. You could be sitting at 4-1, and that is 2 really quality good wins. Kind of 3 if you count Tulane, depending on how well they start the season.
Yeah, I think when UAB plays Tulane, UAB's going to win handily, like I said, and it won't seem as high of a quality of win as it will at the end of the year, get back on UAB's schedule. But yeah, after those, like I said, you pair up with Liberty, who I think will probably be your second toughest opponent this year, behind Georgia. I think after that, Marshall, probably on the playing field. But nonetheless, I think that's the game that if you win or lose that game, I think you win out probably the rest of the year on that one. You'll have to play Marshall twice, but that Liberty game's, again, going to tell a lot about you. You're going to get first test on Georgia. Get 2 games after that. Whereas you look at Liberty, they don't play anybody beforehand. You play Campbell, you play Troy, you play Old Dominion, and then you play Syracuse. Syracuse ain't great, they're a Power 5 school, but they're not a good team. That I think Liberty should win that one on the road. Syracuse before they play UAB. I think that's going to give UAB an edge in that game. Has already played JSU, who's got a pretty good offense, playing Georgia, who's got a really good offense. North Texas, who's got a really good offense, and then playing Tulane. So I think UAB's defense is going to be the difference in that game, and I've probably got them winning that one by 10-14.
Yeah, being a home game, I think you kind of get a little bit of edge, wherever you are, truthfully, depending on the atmosphere. But most of their games, the defense they had last year with top 10 defense, correct?
Yeah.
Top 10 defense, I think they averaged around 20, 21 points a game, roughly right over 300 yards. So these first 5 games, and do you know how, off the top of your head, how many starters are returning on defense?
9?
Yeah.
I think it's 9.
I knew it was above 7, and 7's kind of a number I look at. Like if you got 6 or 7 people returning on either side of the ball, you should very well pick up where you left off. So in a top 10 defense, top 8 defense, whatever they were last year, these first 5 games, I think, are something you should ask for as a defense.
Yeah, absolutely. After Liberty, though, you play Florida Atlantic at home, Southern Miss in Hattiesburg, and then Rice at home before you head into the bye week. I don't really see anybody giving anybody any trouble.
Yep.
Southern Miss, we talked about who are they going to have at quarterback. Florida Atlantic, that's Smoke.
Yeah.
And then Rice, again, not a really good team there this year. We're hoping Rice improves a lot this season, like we talked about yesterday. But Again, not much there. I don't really see UAB having any troubles with guys. Florida Atlantic may be a high-scoring game. Southern Miss, probably 20-point win somewhere in there. I don't know. I'm just really high on this UAB defense. I think having so many people come back, I think that's going to be the.
Yeah, absolutely. And they lost leading tackler Chris Moll, or Moll, however you pronounce that. But still, returning 8 or 9 players for sure, depending on how many start. You couldn't ask for much more. I think as a coach, as a defensive coordinator, I would say that's a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then going back into the bye week, comes at a pretty good time. You play 8 games actually to start the year. Then you hit that bye week. Again, the only bad thing about the bye week is you played 3 toughest opponents 3 of the first 5 weeks of the year with no break. Now you do get the extra 3 days between Jacksonville State and Georgia. But nonetheless, by the time you get that bye week, you're thinking, we've already played the bulk of our schedule. We've already played the meat. By week 5, you're done with the meat of your schedule, the toughest games you're going to play. At this point in the season, you focus your eyes on Marshall 13th, and then you focus again on Marshall December 4th. That's all you got to worry about. You got to worry about beating Marshall twice, really. UTEP, UTSA, and Louisiana Tech are all games you should win. UTSA, we talked about, could end up beating UAB. Louisiana Tech beat UAB last year, so it's not games. I would say those 2 are probably trap games for UAB, but I think as long as they come in with their briefcases, their blue collars, and go to work, they shouldn't.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like you said, Marshall on November 13th turn around and playing them within the month, which I believe, and I think you believe the same, will be the case. You kind of got to look at it as, do you want to have everything clicking before you play them the first time? So if you can get, I think they can figure themselves out in the first 5 games of the season. I really do.
Yeah.
Depending on the quarterback situation and what exactly goes down there, I think they can have themselves figured out by week 7, week 8, and going into those 2 games, they should be able to dominate it. But we haven't covered as much Marshall. They will be a good team, like we've already mentioned, defensively. So, and where's UAB the weakest at? I think going to be on the offensive side of the ball. So,
I think
definitely going to be a test.
I think their weakest part is quarterback, and that's strictly just because you don't really know who it's going to be. Johnston's coming off of an injury. Your O-line is solidified. You have a good running back coming in. You still have wide receivers coming back. So I think looking at the team top to bottom, your weakest link is the quarterback position. So the defense is going to keep you in games, but the quarterback position is what's going to win you games down.
And with 2 quarterbacks putting up fairly decent numbers, kind of complementing each other in terms of their stats, and I thought that's a good problem to have. So, we'll see. I guess, like we said, the first 2-3 games of the season, the first 5 games, going to be a real test for the quarterback situation.
Yeah. I think UTSA may be the biggest trap game out of those 3. You play Marshall on the road. I would be more worried about getting beat by Marshall the second time around because it's hard to beat the team twice. So it don't matter who you are. Alabama playing Georgia twice this year. Alabama playing Georgia, LSU twice in years past. USC having to play Oregon season, turn around and play them in the conference championship. Things like that. Like, it's hard to beat anybody twice. If you're UAB, I think you have to be more about getting past Marshall the first time. I don't think that'll be as big of a as getting past them in the conference championship. Now, if I'm not mistaken, last year the conference championship game was ugly. I think it rained the whole time. It was cold as crap. I think it was in Huntington, West Virginia. It was just, just miserable conditions for a football game. So I think this year will be a little better. Hopefully, I think this year it'll be in Birmingham. game we may have to get down to freeze our butts off a little bit, but it should be Marshall UAB rematch.
Absolutely.
I think that kind of wraps up UAB. Not really too much to talk about outside of the first 5 weeks, just because I think they're, other than Marshall, the rest of the game kind of they should handle.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on?
Look forward to seeing some games. In our future, I see us going to at least 2, hopefully 3 UAB games this year. I could very well see it.
Yeah, I'd love to. We're for sure going to go to UAB Jacksonville State. I'd love to get down to UAB. And then possibly the Marshall game championship. It is in Birmingham.
And Louisiana Tech wouldn't be a bad one either.
Yeah. That'll be an 11 o'clock kickoff for us. So, ideally, hey, I'll tell you what I want to do, just because I'm thinking about it right now. I want to get down to Atlanta.
I know what you're about to say.
I want to get to Atlanta one day. Go to like all 3 games. Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Kennesaw State, just bam, bam, bam. So, if you're in Atlanta and you know how we can make that happen, let us know, because we're about it. 3 games in one day.
Make it 4 for the weekend. We'll catch the Falcons.
Oh, might as well. Yeah, absolutely. So if there's a weekend that lines up like that, TPA is going to Atlanta road trip. Who's all joining us? But yeah, so that's going to wrap up the UAB preview. We covered UAB a lot in yesterday's. So if you feel like we kind of missed out on a lot of stuff, we probably didn't. We probably just already talked about it in yesterday's video. I don't want to repeat ourselves over and over, because at that point, watching all of our previews so far, we are repeating ourselves, but we're repeating ourselves about different teams in terms of guys are coming back, how many points per game, things like that. So the more we talk about it, competitive it gets, so we're trying to stay away from that. But I'll pull up the schedule really quick. We talked about Conference USA, talked about UAB. Tomorrow we will get with Maction. The next day after that, we'll short series on Buffalo before we head to the Mountain West with Boise State and Nevada. Finish up with the Sun Belt, South Alabama, and Troy, 2 more Alabama home teams for us, and 2 independents, and then on into the Power 5 conference previews. If you missed the first episode, I think we said we had 4 just for preseason before the season even started. This is only episode 4, so we have a lot more videos. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you guys enjoy the content. Follow us on all social media: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, obviously, where you're watching this. We're pretty much everywhere. Matthew, anything you want to say to close us out?
Hey, looking forward to covering the rest of Group of 5. 2 really good conferences covered already. A couple of really good teams, some real personal to us. And, hey, if you like football as much as we do, this is the place to be. Feel free to interact with us, any social media. We love it. We love talking football. And make sure you come with facts. And that's it.
And be sure to check out the Sharpie SGL Chrome 0.7. Is it 0.7 lead, I guess? Not really lead.
Ink, yeah.
So TPA at checkout on all your Sharpie SGL products. But thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social media, interact with us, let's be friends, and we'll see you in Birmingham, or actually Montgomery on September 1st.